We're in the middle of Pedic Yud Aleph, chapter 11, on page Tes Zayin. I do want to say that I'd like to hear a little more from you, so I've got to give you the ability to speak. So I want to talk a little less and have you, I'm Pshat and Tanya. I don't mean speak about, the baseball game and French fries. I mean about, if something is not clear what I'm saying, or you have a question, raise your hand and you'll have that opportunity, because I really don't know if you're following. I assume you are, but did anyone have any questions on the Pshat and Tanya that we learned yesterday that come to mind now? And if not now, then later, it's fine. Okay? So in this chapter in Pedic Yud Aleph Yoini, the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya, tackles the Russia. The villain of the Jewish nation, the Russia, of humanity, but Jewish nation as well, the Russia. And the Alter Rebbe, I feel, is very compassionate towards the Russia, as we discussed yesterday, and we might learn later or tomorrow. But the way he begins tackling this whole idea is, he says, until now we've been learning about two types of tzaddikim. Chapter Yud Avi, chapter 10, is about the two levels of tzaddikim. And the Alter Rebbe explained here that the difference between the two depends on how much of the tzaddik is felt within the consciousness and reality of the tzaddik. Is it a complete, total tzaddik environment, or is it an incomplete, i.e., he's still a tzaddik? You can say tzaddik v'toiv loi, that's number one. And then number two, tzaddik v'raloi, tzaddik embarrassed to him. What do you mean tzaddik embarrassed to him? So the Alter Rebbe explained that it's incomplete, meaning both in his good approach to Hashem through Asay Toiv, it's not complete, and also his hatred towards evil is not a total absolute hatred. An example that I give always for this idea is when someone puts us in a barn with smelly animals, and it's terrible, and it smells, and it's uncomfortable. One reaction is you bang on the door, or you say, "Let me out of here," and you go nuts, right? But you still exist. You still exist. The other attitude is you take a knife and you end your life. And that's very extreme, right? But why? Why is that done? Because living with animals is not life, it's death. So what's the difference if it's death this way or that way? You're dead. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone do that. It's an attitude. In other words, let's say evil, bad. Something Hashem says, I hate, I don't want. It's despicable. One attitude is, look, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to talk about it in a positive way. I'm not going to tell my friends about it. It's really bad. Right? Hillel, if you don't mind muting yourself, appreciate it. Thank you. The other attitude is, not only am I not going to, share this shtus, this foolishness with someone, I'm going to obliterate it. It's the difference, Moshe, between being passive and proactive. And this is very important in our lives. And this also is where kanoim, zealots, make a mistake, and they say it's for the cause of Hashem, and I'm a zealot, so I'm going to eliminate it and force it on everybody. And that's the question. So the issue of putting it on everyone else, it's not your business. If the question is whether you eradicate completely the evil in your life, the evil that is in your life that's against Hashem, you forget about your friend. Have you eradicated it? That's the question. The incomplete tzaddik doesn't eradicate it completely. That's why it's called tzaddik v'raloi. right? Because after all, Avram, how do you say he's a tzaddik and he has bad? If he's a tzaddik, he doesn't have bad. If he has bad, he's not a tzaddik. Make up your mind. So the answer is, in action, in deed, in behavior, he's a tzaddik. But here we're looking at the heart. Remember, the analysis of the Balatanya in Tanya is about the soul. Where are we really? Not what we do. What we do, it's very nice, and we're getting a lot of Shai Rapor and Leviathan. We'll get a big piece of meat when Mashiach comes, and we'll be put up front, Mizrach. Thank you very much. The question is, yes.
Quick question.
Yes.
So the incomplete tzaddik doesn't get tempted by the Nefesh Bahamis.
That's right. The incomplete tzaddik has eradicated his nefesh habamis, where the nefesh habamis is only seen as a vehicle for God and not for animalistic desires.
But the main thing, he doesn't hate the evil. He just doesn't. He's not affected by it, but he's not disgusted by it.
No, he is. He very much is, to the point where he eradicates it.
So how does he still have any piece of the evil in him then?
He doesn't. In practicality, no. In behavior, he doesn't have any. In behavior, both levels of tzaddik don't have any vestige of evil. But the difference is that one has a vestige of bad, of taiva, still there, and the proof is that he doesn't hate it. He says, I can't stand it. I don't want to be with it. I'm going to go away from it. But not that is in opposition to God. So make up your mind. Either it's that or it's that. Choose your pick. Which is it?
He's not fighting. So he's fighting against it? And it doesn't manifest itself in the three garments.
That's right. That's right. That's right. But he's come to a point. You're talking about the tzaddik v'toivloi or the tzaddik v'raloi? Which one are you talking about? The tzaddik v'raloi means that he has not yet completely eradicated the bad, the evil, to the point where there's only God and everything else that's against God is a taboo. No, he doesn't. He says it's not nice. It doesn't smell nice. It doesn't feel nice. I don't want it. I don't want to be around it. But he says this, it is, but it's not for me. The tzaddik v'toivloi is, it's not for me. It doesn't exist because in his consciousness, he's eliminated it. That's why David HaMelech, what does the Gemara say? He transformed his Yetzer Hara through fasting. Okay, he did it through fasting. But only through transformation do you have a complete tzaddik. An incomplete tzaddik has not yet transformed it. He's transformed it in practicality and behavior, but not in heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rabbi,
Yes.
question.
Sure.
So this, because you were talking about how, we don't want to be kanoim. We don't want to make other people, force other people to do what they don't want to do.
Okay.
So how about be different than, this is what I'm having a hard time with this, is I want to know what the Rebbe would say about chumras. Because we put so many chumras on that we're literally losing our kids to the chumras. It's mamish like we make it harder and harder for people to keep Yiddishkeit through chumras.
Right. The answer is put chumras on yourself, not on anyone else. On myself, there's nothing wrong if I want to be machmir. But when you put it on someone else, a problem. Now. But here, this must be said. Not putting chumras on others, doesn't mean living in chaos and anything goes. Pirkei Avos says, right? If you don't have government, you're going to have a mad situation and people are going to swallow each other. And the same is in family life. A parent is a parent. A parent needs to give direction. Giving direction to a child and to children, to teenagers, means you put in chumras? No. You and your wife decide, look, this is the type of home we want to have. This is the type of Yiddishkeit. We believe this is the standard. That's not a chumrah. One second, sir. That's not a chumrah. A chumrah is when you, your wife, us, we have certain chumras and we want our kids to follow those chumras. That's a chumrah. Right? So, and this is, as we say in Hebrew, ma'asim b'chol yoim. Every day. Right? I've told you the story, so I'm not ashamed to say it. I was raised that Motzah Shabbos, you don't come down and you don't go out in your weekday clothes. It's Malav and Malka. So if you're going out, whether it be to a concert, whether it be to to the pizza store, you go in your shop. Yeah, people, Yoina, you're from Brooklyn. A lot of people, I don't know how it was in Flatbush, but in here, people are going into Mendelssohn's and to Amnon's with their rekel, with their long thing, and they're buying pizza. It's felt at Shabbos. No, comes down my daughter and says, no, I want to wear weekday clothing because my friends. So that is, is that a chumrah that I'm opposing on her? Or is that a standard? And that's an ongoing discussion. I mean, they're grown already out of the house. Wait, Moshe, let me take Isser first and then you, because he asked first. Go ahead. Isser.
Right. So I think that the challenge for many of us, and I've tried to learn a lot of halacha over the years, but there's still a lot of nuance in what's the halacha,
right, and
what's the chumrah.
Yeah.
And you read like Mishnah Berurah, or you read a halacha sefer, and it's going to say, a Bal Nefesh does this, so that makes it clear. So that's a Bal Nefesh, which means that the basic halacha is not that way.
Right.
But when you're living within a community, and the community has a standard, that standard can, many times, is that the chumrah is the basic.
Yes.
And if you don't adhere to that standard, now, and you could say, listen, that's the halakha, I'm doing the halakha, but you've now put yourself outside of the community.
Yes,
and
yes.
It's a challenge.
You're right. You're 100% right.
You have to know the halakha so well.
But
it's not easy.
And the story,
details.
I've told you the story. My son comes back from Camp Gan Yisrael, a Lubavitcher camp. He's 14 years old, and he's wearing a T-shirt like they wear in camp. And it's not an outrageous T-shirt. It's a kosher T-shirt. And he comes into the square shul, the square shtibel, and I'm davening there, and they look at me as, one of the saints, you know what I'm saying? And my son comes into shul with a T-shirt. He has tzitzis, he has woolen tzitzis. He's definitely a Chabad boy, but he's wearing a T-shirt, and they give him the eyes, and I see it. I say to him, when we come home, I say, Nachum Mendel, I love you, and I know you don't mean well, but it don't work here in this community, especially when you go into a square shtibel. They don't understand these things. And it became, a conflict. Baruch Hashem, he got it, because he got it from them, not from me, because he saw the eyes and more eyes. So he understood either I don't go into shul, and he wanted to come to shul. He did want to come to shul.
But when it comes to our youth feeling alienated, as Yoni was saying, many times it'll come from a perspective of, but that's not what the halakha says. The halakha says what I'm doing is fine, and now you're telling me what I'm doing is not fine, and that's.
No, because the minhag hamokim, what you identified was very, very correct and good. The minhag hamokim is minhag hamokim. I mean, it's their shul. Whether they're outrageous or cuckoo, and they're not, but it's their shul. You want to daven in their shul, you have to follow their rules. Now, the same is in a community. So if in your community in Bet Shemesh, you have modern Orthodox and Hasidic and Litvic and this and that, choose your community, no problem. Right? The Sephardim come in with sandals. Okay? Now, if Ashkenazim come in with sandals, and the Mishnah Brura, the Balatanya writes, the Alter Rebbe writes, you have to wear Puzmakoy's socks, and you're a Lubavitcher, so someone has a right to say to you, hey, you're a Lubavitcher, you follow the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, you need to wear socks when you daven. If you're a Sephardi, you don't. Even the Mishnah Brura doesn't say Pus Makoy, so we can be matir and not wearing socks during davening. But you're a Chabadnik, you should wear socks. Then I'll tell you something, I don't want to say who, one of our former students, who wasn't, raised, with orthodoxy and all that, and he said to me, how do people come into shul on Shabbos without wearing a jacket and a white shirt? Like he was coming from Brooklyn. And he knows, even though he wasn't so, orthodox and all that, but you come to shul Shabbos, you put on a jacket or at least a white shirt, you know what I'm saying? My point is that a minig hamokim is a minig hamokim. So that's called the chumrah? No, it's called the chumrah, but it's a chumrah within the realm of a community. Now, listen, the Karlbach shul, you guys, some of you daven or whatever. If they have certain other rules and you belong to that community, kol hakavod. If that's your community.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to push the point.
Yeah,
because it's pretty well known. It's pretty well known. The Reb Kanievsky said it's better to daven without a minyan, to go home and daven with your hat at home, than to daven without a hat with a minyan. Now, what's the halacha?
The halacha is, as far as I know, again, I don't have the svarim in front of me, you don't need to daven with a hat.
What they do 300 years ago when they didn't have that.
Yeah,
Well, that was a different standard.
Right, okay, so Rav Kanievsky is coming, I would imagine, from his insular community of Bnei Brak, and that's what they do there. Hey, I was right in Lakewood one morning this past year, last summer, yeah. I went to a minyan. I think I told you, the Kloisenberg Shul, it says, do not come in here if you plan on davening without a hat and jacket. On the door. You know what I did? I didn't have my jacket then. I had my hat. I went to another shul. If this is their minig, I don't have a right to go and it's wrong. It's wrong of me to do that. Even though, again, what do you mean? You can force someone to wear a jacket? But that's their shul. They're not the... So Isser, if Rav Kanievsky's community, that's what they believe and follow, if you want to belong to that community, that's what you have to follow. You don't need to belong to that community. It could be a shul right next door, and you can do otherwise. Yes, Hillel, Moshe, I'll take your question in a second. Hillel, you want to ask something?
Yeah, well, I'm going to give you an example that I was confronted with probably 35 years ago. I was davening in a shul in the new neighborhood we moved into, and after davening, a guy came up to me and he said to me, are you trying to make us look bad? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you're wearing a wedding ring. And I said, yeah, I'm wearing a wedding ring. What's the problem? And he said, frum men don't wear wedding rings. And he was kind of lambasting me on this. So a young rabbi friend of mine said, just come with me. And we went to his house, and he pulled out the Mishnah Brura, and I don't remember exactly where it was, but he showed me that the Hofetz Chaim said that when you're washing for saying Al Nitalas Yadayim and to do Motzi, that men don't have to take their rings off,
right,
but women do.
Right.
And that's because women would take their rings off when regularly for a variety of reasons, and that men usually leave them on.
Right.
So I think that kind of fits. I mean, for somebody to be greeted in a shul.
Okay.
Was quite
Right. But Hillel, with all fairness, if you didn't know, so it didn't apply to you, but if you knew that this shul has a minhag that they don't want men to wear rings, and you knew about it, and you understood it, and you still go in, then you're wrong and they're right. because you are entering their domain. Now they could be outrageous. Don't daven there. Go somewhere else. But that's their domain, you know. So you know what I'm saying. So you're right that the guy and the person showed you the Mishnah Bruder. But nevertheless, a shul has a right to make that determination. I'll just share one more thing, and then I'll take Moshe your question. Many years ago, here in Borough Park, a rabbi was giving a shiur to some relatives in Tanya, and he couldn't make it. He calls me up, Chabad rabbi from Crown Heights. Can I teach them? I said, sure. We needed a place to learn. Half a block down is a shul. A nice bubble shul. It was new at the time. I went in there in the middle of the day. Place is empty, light, air conditioned. We sat and learned. The rabbi calls me over later. He says, do me a favor. Don't learn with them Tanya anymore in my shul. I couldn't believe it. And I was outraged. I didn't say anything. I went over to a big posek here. And I asked him a shaila in halacha. If the rabbi has a right to tell me to stop learning Tanya with another yid in a shul. And you know what he told me? Because the shul belongs to him privately, he has a right to tell you that. That's what he told me. I said, okay. I accepted it. It's outrageous.
In my case, by the way,
What?
there wasn't a rule. In my case, there wasn't a rule of the shul.
Oh, okay,
I
fine.
didn't know that
If there's no rule of the if there's no rule of the shul, it's different. Moshe, finally, Achron Chaviv. What do you have to say?
I just want to say that I was fascinated yesterday when you made the point, and I remember you've said this before in Shir
Yeah.
previously. This point that amongst Hasidim, we generally put an emphasis on what we think about as opposed to what we say out of our mouths.
Correct.
And I felt that was, I remember when we shared that, I don't know, some time ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember what we were learning. But it's something I think about a lot, that it's such a critical point. It's like such a fundamental point, because obviously if a person's thinking, like Isser was saying before, yesterday, I guess, I'm assuming this is from the Baal Shem Tov, where you are where your thoughts are.
Yeah.
And your thoughts ultimately are going to dictate so much of our conduct. And so, why do we, if you focus on what your thoughts are, then you generally don't have to be, whatever speech comes out of your mouth is Mitzvah Shem is going to be good speech. It's going to be a nice speech.
Yeah.
I just want to take that, and the reason I'm saying that is because, Yoni, when you bring up the issue about chumras and about kids, I think it's so much, though, how we got to back up, I think. How do we view a chumrah to begin with? It's interesting, in some communities, I've heard this here, I've heard this among certain Lubavitchers here in Eretz Yisrael, we've been hearing this, they don't use the word chumrah. They call them hidurim.
Yeah.
Right? So if you all of a sudden, if you look at all the Pesach hidurim, well, all of a sudden everything looks totally different. Right? You hear the word chumrah, you're like, it's like this heavy, But you hear the word hidurim, it's like,
I like that. That's great. That's great. I never thought of that. That's great.
And if a husband and wife speak about it that way, and that's the attitude in the house,
Right.
well, if it's made to be nice in the house, and Yiddishkeit, and the hidurim are viewed in a positive, always in a happy light, I think that's, I don't know, I think that's a big inoculation against, let's say, what our kids are going to experience out in the street, and again, I just think this issue, it's I guess the reason I'm just bringing this, because I think, Yoni, when you brought that up, there's no question that it can be an issue, but I think that, just going back to what we learned yesterday, how we think about things to begin with.
Right.
We think about
Right. And so
It's such a
in conjunction with Yoni, you're 100% right that if the view, and Moshe said it beautifully, if the view is chumras, we're gonna lose. We're losing. We're losing. They're lost. They're more and more gonna leave. And guess what? Some of us are gonna leave. With the white beards, it's happening today too. Already 40 years of chumras. Enough already. Enough. I can't handle it anymore. I want to enjoy Yiddishkeit. I want to feel good about it. But if not only the spin, they say it's all the spin, Moshe. Not only that the spin is that it's Hidurim, but it really is Hidurim. It really, Hidurim means beautification, lahader. Hidur mitzvah, to beautify the mitzvah, to make it nicer, to make it more elegant, to make it more enjoyable. Now, the question is, how being more tznius when it's 90 degrees in the summer in Tel Aviv, or in Bet Shemesh, how is it more of a hidur? Okay, that needs a conversation. That needs a discussion. Of what a Bas Yisrael is, what a Yid is, how it's supposed to look as a Yid, and you discuss it. Rabbi Twersky over Sholem would always share this vart, and he wrote it, and the first time I read it, from then I always repeat it, that he was raised by his father in Milwaukee when he did something mischievous or something, es passt nit, those words, es passt nit, which in Yiddish, in English, it means it's not befitting. It's not befitting. Now, again, so there's the not, the negative, but take away the not, in other words, it's befitting that you, as a Yid, coming from such a family, such a community, you raise the bar. People should see you and they say, oh, I would like to identify with your shul. I would like to identify with your community. And I think that this is something that goes a very long way for the teens today. Again, they're going to have their struggles, they're going to have their challenges, and life is life. But at the end of the day, when it'll kick in, when it's going to, it's going to kick in, they're going to say, yeah, Beis Yisrael. I'm Beis Yisrael. I come from a certain home. I come from a certain community. I want to, be better. I want to, not just do the mitzvah to get away with it. The mitzvah, doing the mitzvah to get away with it. Okay, but it ends, because it ends. I mean, the same story I told you yesterday about the guy with the black leather and all that. The flip side of that is he's going to shul, but at the same time, he walks out saying, I'm into punk rock and leather and all that. In other words, you can flip it around too. Is you going to shul because my father wants me to go to shul, and I have this guilt towards my father, so I go into a shul. But really, that's not where I am. So it depends, it depends on what's going on. On one hand, hey, he's in a shul. He's saying a bracha. At the same time, he, not me and you looking at him, but he has to ask himself, so why doesn't that change your attitude that you have less leather and less rings and calm down a little bit and work out your life, that, what I'm saying? So that's his cheshbon. That's his cheshbon. And that's what they're going to experience, the youth. We'll stop here. I know, Moshe, one more thing, yeah? Go ahead.
I'll just say one more thing. And that is that I just want to go back to this point, though, Yoni, what you were bringing up, though. I remember 25 years ago, my first Safras teacher, he said to us, we were talking about chumras. He said he always noticed that whenever he sees someone who's been extremely chumradik on something, he's super has these chumras, he's like a kanai in one area. He said without fail, in somewhere else in his life, he's extremely makel. In other words, it's like he may be crazy, frum in one area of his life, but in another area, he's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, makel in a way that we would like, what's this guy doing?
Right.
And I'm just bringing that up because, again, like we always have to keep things in perspective, you know, and like everything that we always, I'm talking to myself as I'm saying, is to want Yiddishkeit to be enjoyable. We want it to be warm. We want our children to always have a loving. They know that the home is such a loving, warm place, and that the Yiddishkeit that we're trying to give them is coming. That we have their back without any preconditions. I'm mentioning that because we don't want ever Yiddishkeit to feel like it's like, you know, like this heavy.
That's what he said. That's what Yoni said. Chevra, I have to go. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Seid gesund. Psuras Toivus. Bye bye.